what I'm presenting here actually comes out of the Boston workshop. So I was lucky enough to be at the previous workshop for this in Boston. Whenever you went to the middle of the woods, a place that resembled Gotham Manor, got treated like royalty, and did about 12 hours a day trying to generate templates and understand what it all really means. And I came out of the workshop with this wonderful idea, and this how do we connect this? How do we take this back to the BBC? And how do we do this as an organisation? And I got back to BBC, and I realised that technically this was all possible, but at a human level, get people to think in this way and kind of join the dots, and actually work together to solve this was non-trivial. So I had a choice of someone who to co-lead this with, and I found myself a human manager who can actually help me kind of work with the people and actually look at differences and different opinions and actually reach kind of a consensus of how you do this. But give you kind of that story of what we did. And I'm also going to try and make some of that scary schema a little bit quite visual, which I think helps. So firstly to say that this is the work of many. I got back to BBC and I kind of built a team that I figured could do this work and had all the skills needed. I don't have all the skills. I'm not the best at these templates, but I had Thomas Gardner, I had Alexandra to help me to the data side. I got Charlotte to help me with the people. And then we brought in Jeff and Pierluigi helped as well, and Colin from Medin to actually kind of work on this as a solution together. And these people did most of the work. I just brought an idea to the table and they ran to it. So Pierluigi's already introduced Otis. I think the key thing to say is that a lot of their work, their effort is actually in a book to actually help people understand. And at BBC level, without linking that data to Otis and Ocean Info, this one is effectively key indicator. It gives that visibility in the UN decade, it gives NOC and UK research that visibility in the UN decade. So it's really important. And that's the bit that's the kind of what I use to actually get management to go, yes, so everything uses this schema.org, it's stuff that you may start to look at later. And it's a common standard, as Adam already introduced Pierluigi introduced that, gives that ability to start to actually start to get discoverability in Google. But in BBC, we already do some of this. So we've got something called a published data library. So every time we create a DOI for some data, we have some schema.org which then goes and gets served. So we actually have some experience already. And then which is a data description page, that also uses it. So we have some of that base knowledge. And what we did in Boston was he generated this beautiful template, which Nico was driving force behind a lot of this, but it had all of that beautiful metadata needed for people to pick up that data and be able to reuse that data, which I think is key. And one of the questions on the open data is like, I can't get out of this and can use it. Everything to reuse that data is in that template. How do we get it into what we're saying really see? And this was kind of the picture when we first started. So we have the data provided by many originators, thousands and thousands of sessions of data. There's 1,000 transfer functions to give an idea of the diversity of data we receive at BBC. And those data go to the policy website, and the policy serving, it gets serviced in DataNet, and the metadata go to Medin. And kind of some of the initial discussion I had was, well, we already serviced the data, already serviced Medin, why do we need to do more about this? And there's a real question as to how do we get that to Ocean Carbon and Medin and CDataNet. They can serve, give up, they serve a lot of metadata, but when you look at things like carbon data, biodiversity data, some of those specifics needed to really get their usability are actually within the Medin or CDataNet template. So it's a question of how do we fill that gap and get additional metadata for us to get true reusability. So we have these two challenges. How do we serve that metadata quotas by existing partnerships? They're long-term partnerships. We work with those people. They're a core of the business we do. We actually want to expand on that to incorporate those. And how do we actually do this in a way that contributes to this development in the community as well? I think it's really important. So we built the team, got some developers. I've got 2 weeks, I got 4 weeks of money from a project that had a little bit left. and how can we actually do some of this work in 2 weeks was the challenge. And we got the developers together, and I kind of threw the XML and the GitHub page at them, and we sat down for a week or so, and they actually drew it out. They actually took these concepts. So with the schema build, they did concept, effective place, event, data set, and then we took some real examples. So in this case, you've got the element CTD data and how that connects to the crews, how it connects to us. You can see all these entities. And actually what we did was we actually broke up the template. We connected the data we want to get into that template, assigned it to the boxes, and we did a visual representation of how we actually want to convert that into these templates. When we first started, we realized our understanding was backwards. We actually had to go from one way to the other and just make it work. It was actually the opposite of what I thought it looked like at the beginning, but we actually got this template. And that was probably a week's worth of work and a week's worth of discussion to kind of get to the point where we turn off these graphic across. And then we're talking, then we've got effectively the difference between C data and BHC because both of them serve and both already have the entities, so in the standard stage. So on this side here, we have what's currently served by C data now. So you've got these things called EDMA, and these effective projects. EDMOs, main organizations. EDIOS, effectively the long-term time series type things. ISREC and CDIs are just identifiers that go things together, don't worry about those two. And then here we've got crews, central events, fixations, data activities. And we want to serve all of this to Otis OA, which is kind of a complete package. And we want to kind of reduce the amount of duplication we've got on that work. So we actually sat down with SynDataNet, we sat down with Otis, we sat down with our team, and we kind of drew this picture as to what goes where and how we join those dots. So effectively, from BODC, we serve templates. From CDataNet, they already serve templates. And within those templates, we've actually connected the entities together using all of these arrows, which means that which effectively means that we can actually serve all that metadata, we can reduce duplication, and we can do the enhanced profiles we're looking to do. That's what comes out of it. So when you take those visualizations, you join it together, you get that XML. Without strictly developing the job to actually turn those visualizations into something more technical. And the last thing we did was we worked with Jeff McKenna to agree how Otis harvest this. And we actually agreed to Otis harvest it. We've got lots of different ways of doing it. And we effectively put it on a site map and they harvest it. So this is kind of the visualization result. So effectively, CDataNet already serves some of the schema.org. Medin already served some of the schema.org. We connect and join those two together. And then for elements like carbon data or biodiversity data, we can actually get those snippets that are needed to actually enhance that for those communities and serve it individually. And then the guys at Otis actually join all the dots together, you can make that servable and make that usable by the community. This just shows you can access some of the relationships, but the visual graph really going to help you this one. But essentially, this shows us joining them, how we join those dots together. So this is actually one of the Ecological slides, and once this works, you can actually blur out the coastline. And it shows once this works, how much more will be available, how much more is discoverable. I think it's a measure of that, a measure of that success. And it's a relatively small amount of work that was done before. So we've got this hybrid model. It works with the existing partnerships we have. It means as they become more capable, we can adapt that model so they can take over different responsibilities as we go. It allows us to do, if we've got a specific need from, say, the carbon community, a specific carbon data set, we can serve that additional metadata, get that out there, that can be used without actually having to need these communities to adapt very quickly to make that possible. The example file that we've got up is the PAP data, so shout to Charlotte, and Charlotte's posted later. And also Charlotte's part of Medin group as well. That's the stuff that's live, and then 140,000 is actually a bit of harvesting work. I'm really keen to pursue that. But technically not BC anymore, but I'm strongly encouraging that the work continues. And that's what happened.